She was 23 when she died.
Okay. Okay, let's move ahead to your father, whom even I remember. Let's try and think, go just to your youngest days. So, Amos, you're the oldest. You were born in 1907. 1907. So you begin to remember things in. You remember the start of the First World War.
Yes, I do that.
And what are some of the things that you recollect in your young days with your father and your mother as well?
I remember Mother as being very, I would think, pious. She would, when on a Good Friday morning, she would not eat anything. She would fast on a Good Friday, and she certainly was very serious about the death of Christ. She was, however, also very, very, very particular as far as riding in a car is concerned. That was a real sinful thing. Which was hard to understand, but I think in her later days she probably saw that is not exactly so. And I'd rather think that she did.
Now it says here that she died in what year?
1930.
1930. Okay. And had you become believers then at that point in time, or not yet? It was during the 30s that you became believers, wasn't it? Yes. None of us were believers at the time she died. Okay. Anything else about your childhood that you remember playing around home? Dad, you've got a little story about tricking Sidney of his candy bars.
I guess that was not what you call a credit to me. I was a little older than he, and if somebody gave us a candy stick, like we used to get those canes,
Red and white.
and anyway, we'd have an agreement. I'd break the candy, but then he'd get the largest end. I took the smaller end. But in order to have that fair then, because I was satisfied with the smaller end, I was allowed to bite off of his end until it only had the size.
Sidney, can you corroborate the correctness of that story?
No, I don't remember that story, but I remember that my taste for candies wasn't the same as his. At Christmas time, we would have candies dialed out to 1, 2, and 1, 2, all right. And we'd have the equal amount of candies, including an orange and some peanuts, some homemade candy. So I'd save my candies until weeks after Christmas, until we were getting kind of dried out. And whenever I wanted to have a bargain with Israel, I would say, Israel, I'm going to give you this candy if you bring in the wood, or if you do my turn in the dishes. And he'd fall for that. And that was good trading, because I didn't particularly like the sweets, but he did.
Okay. Any other little things?
I think I like the candy all right, but I was afraid that if I ate it, I wouldn't have it anymore to eat some other time. So it sat there. I'm sure that I had candy not only 2 or 3 weeks, but till next Christmas. I still had some candy somewhere left.
Was that about the only time of year you'd get candy at Christmas, Mary?
Oh yes, the only time. An orange is the only time we get it. Is at Christmas time. And every other thing is maybe money we would think is worth about 20 times less than it was then, but oranges were still 5 cents a piece then, so that would make oranges $1 a piece now. They're not that now.
Do you always remember how we would be treated on Christmas Day? Anybody remember, did we go to church, or that when Mom, after you had done the chores in the morning, we were meant to sit behind the stove there in a row in the H while, and Mom would sit there by the sewing machine and peeling the oranges and divide them up in quarters, and we would send it along like in a row. Remember that, did they?
Yeah, I think I do. And
Yeah.
at that same time, she would teach us the story of Jesus' birth and his death and resurrection. And she would teach us to say the Lord's Prayer. And then there was the story of Joseph that I remember Mother would teach us.
And we would read German, like in that little book. We had a book that to learn German reading.
One thing I can remember, which all the rest of them don't, and that is when Dad built the straw shed onto the barn. That was in 1910, and I remember that quite well. None of the rest do.
Yeah. Okay.
You were 3 years old, you said.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so you remember that. So up until that time, it's just been a straight stretch.
Yes.
And it stayed that way until Carol put on an additional extension.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. What about school?